Welcome to The Sacramentalists, a podcast where the ancient Christian faith is brought to bear on issues prevalent in modern culture. We're your hosts. I'm Father Wesley Walker.
And I'm Father Creighton McElveen.
And today we're back with another short episode, which we've been doing kind of periodically just to keep things interesting, keep things moving. But we're joined again by Bishop Chandler Holder Jones, presiding bishop of the Anglican Province of America. Thank you for being willing to join us for this Sacramentalist short today, Bishop.
Thank you for having me. It is a joy and delight always to be with you. This is a special treat because it's 2 for 1. We're doing this on the same day. It's marvelous to be with you, and thank you for welcoming me so lovingly and for your hospitality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to do something a little different today. All of our short episodes have been kind of based on some sort of theological issue, or, we've tackled some just basic stuff, mortal venial sin, why be Anglican, those kind of things. Today, we're going to do a fantasy draft of Christian devotional literature. We are defining devotional literature very broadly. So, I suppose we could always, debate about whether a particular work qualifies, but we'll try and err on the side of liberality. So we're each going to pick 5 works, and we'll go around the circle a couple times. So Bishop Chad, we would be honored if you get the first pick of the first Sacramentalist draft ever.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. This is a treat as well. Here are a few books that might really help in the spiritual life. An Introduction to the Devout and Holy Life by St. Francis de Sales. If you've never read it, it's one of the best ever produced, a marvelous text, easy to read, easy to understand. An Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales is wonderful.
I know Father Creighton probably wanted that one.
That was very high on my list. That is one of my absolute favorites. But that's what you get with a first round draft pick.
That's right. That's why we had to give it to the bishop. You can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Father Creighton,
the only churchman from Geneva that I support.
Father Creighton, what's your first pick in the first round?
All right, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to steal a good one. I think it has to be The Imitation of Christ by St. Thomas à Kempis. What more is there to say? If you haven't read it, you absolutely should. It is, I think, one of the most important and foundational devotional texts that the church has. And it's exactly what it says. It's the imitation of Christ. And so I think it serves really well for like a great Lenten study at your parish to prepare for Easter. You can do it any time of the year, but it's a 10 out of 10.
I've been thinking about incorporating that. We do the daily office before Bible study and other events, and I've been thinking about just reading a small section of that every time we do an office, just because I think it's such a good work. So I'm a little jealous. That you got that one, but I figured it was inevitable that I would not get that since I knew I was going third. Now, we didn't discuss, should this be a snake draft where I get 2 picks now because I'm drafting last and then it goes back around?
I'm okay with
Bishop,
that.
Bishop sure. Chad got Francis de Sales. I feel like this is hard, to come back from. I'm going to go with Conferences by John Cassian. Of course, he brings the Eastern monastic tradition to the West. And I think I've been reading it devotionally for quite some time, just a short section every morning at morning prayer. And just have really loved the advice that the monks, the abbots give throughout the book. I think it's wonderful, beautiful. So I'm going to go with Conferences. That will be my first pick. My second pick, I think I'm going to have to go with the Prayers of St. Anselm. Beautiful stuff. I mean, just really beautiful. He has a 16-page prayer to St. Paul that is phenomenal. And I mean, most Roman Catholics today have no real devotion to St. Paul, but St. Anselm has this like 16-page prayer. It's beautiful. Prayer to the Cross is beautiful. He has 3 prayers to Mary that are beautiful, and he just writes with such a literary quality to it. I always love St. Anselm's writing, but his prayers are especially beautiful to me. So I will go with that. So Conferences and Prayers of St. Anselm. Father Creighton, that means it's back to you for the second pick of the second round.
Oh, those are both really good. I think I'm going to go with The Interior Castle by St. Teresa of Avila. That particular work has a soft spot in my heart. And Yeah, I think it's helpful in sort of growing and understanding the interior life and what it means to live a Christian life of sacrifice and commitment and devotion to Christ. So kind of keeping with a theme with the imitation of Christ. So my next pick is The Interior Castle.
Excellent, excellent. Bishop Chad, you now get 2 picks because we have
All
reached
right.
the end of the other end of the snake.
Let's go Anglican, specifically Anglican writers. The Preces Private, the private prayers of Lancelot Andrewes. It's in print. You can find it now. A wonderful collection of prayers, collects, devotions, litanies. It is such a wonderful holy hardware of the spiritual life. The private prayers of Lancelot Andrewes and The Christian Year by John Keble, that magnificent collection of poetry for all of the major feasts of the year, all the major seasons of the Christian year, a forgotten classic, The Christian Year by John Keble, that great Anglo-Catholic theologian and poet. Highly recommended.
Excellent. Love it. Solid 2 picks. Our Father Creighton, it's back to you for your third.
All right. I think if anyone from our Patreon is listening and they're on the Discord, this one may not be surprising, but this is a deep cut and it's a fun one. So, True Devotion to Mary with Preparation for Total Consecration by St. Louis de Montfort. If you want something that's really good on Marian spirituality and the connection of the Christian life to the life of Our Lady, this is a great one.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm very happy to say that besides Imitation of Christ, none of my other ones have been picked. So I get 2 picks now because we're at the other end of the snake. This is hard. I think I'm going to have to say Confessions by St. Augustine. I think that counts. One of the first, spiritual autobiographies. And it's just hard. I mean, you have such beautiful statements. Our hearts are restless till they rest in thee. Yeah, such a great book. And then my fourth one, I think I'm going to go with The Ladder of Monks by Guigo II, which is where a great introduction to Lectio Divina. So I think those will be my 2: Confessions by Augustine and The Ladder of Monks by Guigo II. All right, Creighton, what is your 4th pick?
Well, you stole Confessions from me, so I'm gonna have to be mad at you later about that. I've had 2 stolen already. All right, so I think since we're being sort of broad, I'm gonna go with a more modern book, and it's called Wounded Healer by Henry Nouwen. I try to read this every year. I think it's especially good for people in ministry. If you are clergy or you're involved in any sort of ministry, I think it's a great place to go. I like reading it during Lent, just to try to get my head on straight in that particularly different season. So, Wounded Healer by Henry Nouwen.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, Bishop, you get 2 picks. These are your last 2, so you got to make them
Okay.
count.
How about The Pastoral Rule by St. Gregory the Great? This is particularly helpful for clergy. A beautiful exposition of scripture, of ministry in the life of the church, beneficial both to laity and clergy. A wonderful work. I consult it consistently. The Pastoral Rule by St. Gregory the Great, Pope Gregory I. And I'll choose an Anglican. The works of Bishop Frank Weston of Zanzibar. One may not think of him as a spiritual master, but he is. And if you go onto Project Canterbury, you can find collected his spiritual works and sermons, which I found to be profound and extremely helpful over the years. Beautiful descriptions and explanations of the spiritual life. The works of Bishop Frank Weston, SSC of Zanzibar.
Excellent. Very important figure in the Anglo-Catholic Congress, at least early on, before his death, unfortunate death. Father Creighton, your last pick.
Last pick. This is hard. I have 3 or 4 still on the list that are all kind of competing in my mind. But I think I'll go with The Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross.
Excellent one. I'm surprised he lasted this long, actually.
Yeah, me too. I have a very, very beat up copy of the collected works of St. John of the Cross, which you can pick up pretty easily in paperback, and it's always in there. And there's tons of good stuff in there too. So if you're looking for some devotional stuff, you can always grab his collected works and find a lot of really amazing gems. But this particular one, The Dark Night of the Soul, has helped me through some dark nights of the soul. So I think it's one most Christians would benefit from reading.
Well, I have the last pick here, and I have a few that I'm debating about. It's tough. I'm going to give some honorable mentions first. I guess Soren Kierkegaard, actually, the philosopher, has a great series of discourses and sermons that he gave at communion on Fridays while he was going through the process of potentially becoming a Lutheran minister in Denmark. They are fantastic sermons, really good sermons. I will not include that on my list as my final pick. The Rule of St. Benedict, I think, also could probably be on there, as could the sermons on Song of Songs by Bernard of Clairvaux. But I think I'm going to have to go with The Life of Moses by Gregory of Nyssa. That book was very impactful to me when I was studying biblical studies because he really introduces the idea of spiritual reading so well. But there's so many applications that can be taken from his Life of Moses in terms of the spiritual life. So I think I'll have to say Life of Moses by Gregory of Nyssa. So, all right, the draft has concluded. Bishop Chad got an Introduction to the Devout Life by Francis de Sales, The Private Prayers of Lancelot Andrews, The Christian Year by John Keble, The Pastoral Rule by Gregory the Great, and the works of Frank Weston, Bishop of Zanzibar. Father Creighton, you had The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, Interior Castle by Teresa Avila, True Devotion to Mary by Louis de Montfort. You're right, that will not be surprising to people who know you. Wounded Healer by Henri Nouwen, and Dark Night of the Soul by John of the Cross. And I had Conferences by Cassian, Prayers of St. Anselm, Confessions by Augustine, The Ladder of Monks by Guigo II, and The Life of Moses by Gregory of Nyssa. Listeners, we will have a poll up on Facebook and on Twitter where you can vote on which team you think did the best in this fantasy draft of devotional literature. So yes, Bishop, thank you again for being with us. It really is always a pleasure, and this was very fun.
Thank you. This has been a joy and a lot of fun. God bless you.
And listeners, if you have anything else you would like us to fantasy draft, please let us know in the comments of this YouTube video or send us an email at thesacramentalists@gmail.com. Thank you.